Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching this broadcast from. Thank you so very much for joining us on yet another Saturday. Today, I can say it's a nice, lovely Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon here in London. Not very often that we can say it's nice, warm, and sunny. But there you go. We are set for some hopefully good days of summer coming up soon. My name is Nishit. I'm here with the team from Hindu Academy, and we run a broadcast every Saturday at 2 o'clock for about 45-50 minutes. And we look at questions that you, the viewers, may be having around the topic of Hinduism. So the way this format is of the broadcast, if you are new today, so we run with a focus topic video. Today, the focus topic video is going to be on gender equality in the Hindu society. And after we've had a look at the focused video, we will then come back and try and ask questions. So feel free to leave your questions in the comments area over on youtube.com/Hindu Academy or on Facebook at facebook.com/Hindu Academy. So without further delay, let's have a look at the focus video for today, which is on gender equality in the Hindu society. And I'll be back just after the video.
Gender issue, because that's again a hot potato now, because religions seem to have been kind of keeping women at bay, saying that you are second rate. Or now you see the central prayer of the Hindus, it's called the Gayatri. This is what it says. It says, let us meditate on the glorious effulgence of that supreme being who has created the universe. May she enlighten our hearts and direct our understanding, addressing God as she, full stop. So in the Hindu tradition, the concept of God itself, not just a father figure, but mother figure is equally valid. Okay, so if somebody says, what's the role of women in Hinduism? We say, many Hindus think God is a woman. That's one. Many of the prophets of the Hindu tradition were female too. Many were female. If you look at the books, you'll see some of the images. So it's not that our idea of concept of God can be female. Our prophets have been male and female. Okay? Now, where did the sati issue arise from? How, because you are burning your widow, surely, Mr. Lakhani, and, when the husband is cuffing the wife, says, oh dear, I'm gone. What's happening with this sati stuff, and where did it come from? Let me give you the background. It's good that you asked this question. There's no scripture of Hinduism which even mentions the word sati. There's no such imposition, no injunction. Where did it spring up from? That's the background. When India was invaded by the Muslims about, say, 700 or 800 years ago, this was standard practice for the Muslim conquerors. Whenever they won a battle, they would not only take over the kingdom, but they would take the wives of the king and make them their concubines, or they were sold off as slaves. Standard practice. Many of these Hindu women, the queens, were not prepared to lose their dignity and sleep in the bed of the person who just killed their husband. So what they would say, when my husband is being cremated, I'm going to jump on the cremation in the burning, funeral pyre and kill myself rather than lose my dignity. Hundreds of women have jumped to their deaths. This is the origin of the sati tradition. Women trying to hang on to their dignity. And I shudder to think about how many women have killed themselves in this fashion. I shudder to think about it. This is the origin. Nothing to do with any Hindu scripture anywhere. This is the background. So the idea of the gender issue is this. But also we recognize, look, I say we have given the highest dignity to women, can say you are God, or even the prophets were women. We also are very poor practitioners. So in the medieval periods, the women were confined to the house, saying that, oh, you can't go and work in greater society. They were confined. The moment you do that, they become a liability, because they are no longer an economic force in the family. And we paid a price for it. And the price was, to get rid of this liability, give dowry. To get rid of the woman, the daughter, you give some money to the husband to take her away, because she's a liability, economic liability. Only in modern India, where women are now taking on roles and activities and careers in every field, women are now becoming again an asset. So that this thing will disappear because the socio-economic landscape is allowing them to escape from this kind of negative position. The Hindu religion has given us the highest dignity. The central prayer addresses God as she. The prophets were women. And finally, if you check out the Hindu homes in United Kingdom, very lovely thing to check out. Do some statistics. Who rules the roost? Check it. Women. So the men like us have to kind of say, well, we'll keep low profile. So this is the reality in the real world. So women have not been denigrated in that sense. But during the medieval periods, when they were confined, they created problem for the society. That's why we have the dowry system. And the sati system has got nothing to do with Hinduism at all. Nothing.
Free e-learning course in Hinduism. To register, please visit www.hindu-academy.com.
Talks on Hinduism, sponsored by People Care, encouraging caring for the elderly in their own homes. For more information, please visit peoplecare.com.
Wonderful. So there you have it. That was our focus topic of the day. And today, I'm sure many of us recognize that indeed women are equals and they are the powerhouses, like Jaybai said, in our houses everywhere. So I'll pass this session over to Manish Bhai to manage and carry on for the next couple of minutes. And then we will move on to the live Q&A sessions. So Manish Bhai, over to you.
Thank you, Nisit Bhai. Wonderful topic today, gender equality in Hindu society. And as we see, as Jai Bhai mentioned, the sati, the widow burning, and dowry system, so many issues in our society still continuing. So let's start with what is and what should be the role of women in a Hindu household. Vijay Bhai, what's your take on it, please?
I think in this day and age, the question of asking what role of women should be in the house, I think is not really a fair one, because I think, really speaking, the role should be equal for both. Yes, for the man and the woman, it should be the same role, and it's a good thing, because I think it's a fact, right? If you look at all the economies of the world where women actually participate in the workforce, they are the economies that are actually powering the world. It's a very, as Jay mentioned, very straightforward mathematics. If half the workforce is out of work, then you can forget ever becoming a advanced modern country. It just doesn't work, right? It's straight mathematics. So I think in this day and age, I would say that really it should be equal. And I know, like many countries, again in Sweden, when I used to work there, I mean, men get the same amount of maternity rights as women, like 6 months, man. And it's a good thing, I think. Yeah. So, well, I guess the role of women in the house should be the same as men, literally in everything you do. That's all I can say on that. Sita?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it. So basically, every sort of opportunity of every sort of duty or role within the household should be addressed either by the man or the woman. They should be interchangeable, and there shouldn't necessarily be any kind of discrimination whatsoever, because for hundreds of years, we've kind of like got that in our psychology that only the women should look after the children, look after the home, do the cooking and cleaning, and the men go out. But now the roles are completely changing dramatically. So now women are, as Dad was saying, an economic powerhouse, and they are supporting their family financially as well as within the home. And same with men, they are also supporting financially as well as within the home. And as sort of time goes on, those old-fashioned sort of ideas of boxes of what men should do and women should do will hopefully start to disintegrate.
Wonderful words of wisdom there, Sita Ben. So, some traditionalists, again, would like to point out some scriptures or maybe Manusmriti and say, look, women should be doing these jobs, men should be doing this job. Should we be, contributing to or accepting such views? And second thing is when we do this where everyone's doing everything, does the family balance then goes awry and we have problem with family balance because now the roles are no longer defined or straightforward? How do we deal with such situations, Sitaben?
But the first thing about the Manusmriti, Dad has said many times in videos, Manusmriti is a very ancient scripture. It's not even a scripture of authority. It was a law book for society at that time, and it's no longer applicable to society these days. in India or anywhere in the world. Actually, if you look at it now, it can be quite offensive. So it's best to just leave that in the archaeology and just focus on the present moment. And in terms of causing confusion, actually, I'll give you my own example. When I got married, like me and my husband, we sat down and we looked at all the jobs in the house, and we sort of divided it up between ourselves. And it wasn't, oh, you're the woman, so you have to do this, or oh, you're the man, you have to do this. We actually just divided it up and we started living like that. And 10 years later, we're still doing the same thing. And we don't feel compromised at all in any way. So we are both sort of fulfilling the duties within the house as much as possible. So we do have defined roles. It's just we get to decide what roles we want to fulfill, which is really nice. Vijay?
Yeah, I think Manish, by the question you address of patriarchy, I know it's still an issue in many households, actually in any society, it's still there. But the fact still remains that in this day and age where you see women and men playing equal roles, I think the children come out better, more educated, more rounded, more sensitive towards other people's feelings. And let's put also with the third gender as well, because when you get everybody works together, it gets a kind of feeling that everybody plays an equal role, right? And that's what society is about. Everybody plays an equal role. The idea that only women should raise their children, I don't think that's true in this day and age. And Manusmriti, as Sita mentioned, is one, but many of the law books, I think people forget. I don't know why it's been really popularized, especially during the British times. It wasn't that popular. I mean, I know that the tradition I come in, we follow something called the Yajnavalkya Smriti, which is again outdated, but much more liberal than the Manusmriti. And the modern one is Shikshapatri, which is like 200 years old. I think even that may be getting outdated. But the point is this, that look, as Jay has mentioned so many times, the idea of morality and moral is valid only in a particular behavior or society structure, is only very in a particular place and time. You can't have it fixated from God knows how many years to now. It doesn't work like that. But one thing I want to mention also about the sati thing that was mentioned. I have read some history about India in the Gupta period or the Mauryan period. And you see in the Gupta period, which is before the coming of the invasions, women play a tremendous role in art, dance. It's all documented. It's not new. So it was there. We know that women played a tremendous role in this. And Gupta period was one of the most kind of great civilizations of India when things really flowered, art, culture. It's always been there. It's only afterwards that this kind of mess. And now you can see that it's very easy for the Indians to turn back to the normal old behavior. Had it been based on religion, then you'll still be practicing all this. But we don't. You all moved on. All Hindu. I know in UK, my daughters are in university. All the girls are in university doing studies. So the fact that we have actually changed so easily shows that it's not actually built into our dharma. The dharma has always kept women and men equal. It's just because of historical reasons that we had this issue. But now it's gone, kind of, yeah, which is a good thing. So there you go.
Wonderful answer, Vijay Bhai. So staying with this sati tradition, some people like to point out that in Mahabharata we see Madri going for this sati route when Pandu died, and they say, look, it was there in our books. So how do you answer to them, Vijay Bhai?
Okay, look, there is one or two instances. Look, India has got a vast amount of literature. Mahabharata is but one of so many. I think that case, from what I understand the story, was Madri actually felt responsible for the death of Pandu. So she felt that because I killed him, I need to be punished. So she's actually making her own law. That because I made this happen and I killed him, I have to go do that as well, because death for death. But I think that is something you should take in context. You don't see it everywhere in the scripture. Just one out of, we have thousands of books. You got Puranas, whole stories. You can't just take one and say this is the norm and now it applies to everybody. It doesn't work like that. I bet you can find that in Iliad, any kind of, even the Old Testament, you find a lot of, not this kind of stuff, but people are getting killed or stoned. It doesn't make it generic, right? People can always pick something out of context and make it big. But that's all I can say on that. Is this a different case? It's not linked to what we just faced kind of afterwards. Yeah, the one which happened in the historical times in like Rajasthan, and I've been to Chittor myself. And it is so humbling that they call this idea of Johar when everybody commits suicide in the fire, every woman. It just brings tears into your eyes that this woman chose death. But that's a whole different thing from the idea of the Mahabharata story. It's from a very tiny piece from a huge epic. So I think we should take it into context. Yeah, Sita.
mean, yeah, I think you've covered it amazingly. I think one other thing we could also think about is with these kind of stories like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, they continue to evolve to reflect the thinking of that society at that particular time. So it's very possible that that part of the story was added in when all of these kind of Sati traditions were sort of taking place, and it was just sort of, you know, bunged into the story. We don't know, because we don't know the historical sort of accuracy of did the Sati actually take place in the story of the Mahabharata. So we have to also sort of see it from the context of society and the way people were thinking at that time, and they may have put it in to make the story more sort of relevant or colourful at that particular time. So we don't know exactly.
Wonderful answer, Asita Ben Vijay. So as we saw, you know, I think there is something on your Wikipedia. There's a page, and it is clearly mentioned the instance of satis before this Islamic invasion. They were very rare. It was some women who wanted to basically go with their husband when their husband. It was completely voluntary. They weren't not forced. But what happened after Islamic invasion is completely different story because of historical reasons, as Jaibai mentioned. So we see three periods: a period before Islamic invasion, where our society was so much liberal, and we can say women were equal in all terms. There were female risikas, and we had female gurus, and we were worshipping goddesses as well, and we continue to do so. So coming to the question of these three periods, what happened? Why were we went backwards in Middle Ages, Vijay?
Oh, you're on mute, Vijay.
Yeah, sorry, there's a couple of things to add here. You know, if you look at the ancient history, by the way, the proof is in the Vedic scripture. Rishi Vak is a very famous Vedic, you know, family, yes. And not only her, Gargi, Bharti, Maitri, there's so many, you know, even teachings of Queen Kunti. So it's been there. I mean, the proof is today. Even today, you have, you know, Anand Mahima was one of the great mystics of India. And today we have a lot of women mystics who actually run their own organized, you know, spiritual organizations. And that's a living proof. Try and find the other religions. You will not see that. It's in India, you see that in Hinduism, that this, the proof is there that actually we had this. The thing is, I think one thing I would say is that I know that if you look at the Gupta period or the early kings, I suspect they focus so much on the economic welfare of the being. And I think they actually lost the martial idea, because when you have a tribe whose only aim is to win wars, then I think that's one thing that even now India has this issue that when they focus on the economy, they have to actually even the army, the warrior thing into part, because sometimes you could defend the pen with the sword as well. It works both ways. And I suspect in the early periods, India kind of lost it. Plus, of course, the truth is that there's so much greed, so many kings, you know, fighting for their own little kingdom. All those, so many things contributed to the issue that India kind of fell back. But having said that, if you look at the ancient scriptures, I don't see any women have to cover their hair when they see the, you know, it's none of it's there, because even the clothes they used to wear were totally different. You know, women had 3-piece, men had 2-piece clothes. That's how it was, right? And that's the Turkish tradition. There was none of this stuff. It actually all came now, and thank God now it's going out again, because now we don't do that kind of, you know, covering heaven, you see so and so, you see your sister, all this kind of nonsense is kind of going. Thank God, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's all for various reasons. But I think the many reasons, not just one, why society changed. Yeah. But hopefully we'll come back again and progress forward. Yeah. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is I'd just like to summarize what we've sort of said, and then throw one last question to the team so that we can close this topic and move forward with the rest of the questions. So we're looking at the traditional status of women in Hinduism. And according to Manusmriti, which is an outdated document, it states that her father protects her in childhood, her husband protects her in her youth, her sons protect her in old age. A woman is never fit for independence. What an outdated way of thinking, but suitable maybe at that period of time when it was created. So its context is very important. So according to Hinduism, you know, when you look at the Vedas, I think they suggest that the primary duty of a woman is to help her husband in performing obligatory duties and enable him to continue his family tradition. So that was then, and now generally speaking, the Vedas placed comparatively greater duties and responsibilities upon men and exhorted the women to help the men in performing these duties. So any respect that the women enjoyed in society were as daughters, mothers, and wives. It meant that once the men passed away, the women lost their status in the family and then suffered from many other things. Now, when it comes to division of duties, when prescribed by scriptures, a husband seems to have wider obligatory duties than the wife, and so on and so forth. So like women cannot officiate in a Vedic ceremony, for example. They can perform domestic rituals like puja or certain other things, but the host of the sacrifice is always a male member. And when we look at respect for women, Hindu worship, the Hindus worship many female deities and many aspects of mother goddess and consorts of male gods. And so I think what it is that men are prohibited from harassing or neglecting women in households and so on and so forth. You cannot expect to abandon your wife or your mother, etc. And similarly, you have to look after your daughter as well, and so on and so forth. So women are considered, aspects of nature, embodiment of the universal mother, Shakti, etc., energy. And on the other hand, you look at women, they used to have limited freedom in a dependent status. So she was either, as a young child, like I said, living under the protection of her father or guardians, as a wife under the protection of her husband, and act as his partner, advisor, and helper. As a mother, she nurtures her children and shapes their destiny. And but it wasn't much more than that. So that's why the plight of widows was, a sad one. If a man died early, and then they would be having trouble because they're dependent on that man. And so this is the way things were before. Society helps shape a lot of these things. The current situation is very, very different. And I'm very happy to say that it is gradually changing, maybe faster now than before. So what I'd like to ask my panel of experts here is, let's just wrap this up with thoughts on how, in the modern world, women are playing such a force to reckon with. So over to you first, Vijay Bhai, and then over to Sita to conclude.
Nishit Bhai, a couple of things you mentioned. Actually, it's a fact. Even today, I would say that even in the West, doesn't matter. Women are still disadvantaged to some extent because they get less pay. It is proven and documented. So we still have a fight to give women equal rights. But look, I work in the engineering field, and I have seen that some of the testers who test some of my software, they are women, and they're absolutely brilliant. Some of them are so good, I actually only want them to test my software. So I've not seen any situation where actually they're any lesser than men in that sense. I think it's just a psyche that needs to change. That's something we still have to work on. And I think also in India, I would suggest that it's true that, as you mentioned, a lot of women are financially dependent on men, but it's changing now because if you look at the figures, I was looking at the figures, which I think the government runs the scheme that called Mudra loans, yes. And about 70% loans are given to women to start small businesses. I think the key is to empower them financially. Once you empower them financially, then I think a lot of things change. Yeah, even the men will start respecting them, but they need to have opportunity. And I think it's happening now. At least in India, I can see that they've made an effort. And I think also in the Western world, it's happening. Women running their own businesses, starting their business. So that's a huge, I think, thing to focus on is to get the financial empowerment. It may be scary for a lot of men, but on the whole, it's good for the family, it's good for society, it's good for everybody. Sita?
I think you've covered it amazingly. So by empowering women, we are doubling the workforce. We are strengthening the economy. We are empowering women to feel better about themselves, that they're not just restricted to the household. And there's just so many other little traditions which are changing. So, I just think of one example is, say, even 20, 30 years ago, the tradition was if there were two families coming together to somebody's house for dinner, it makes me really angry thinking about it. But what happens is the poor women have to do all the cooking. They have to lay the table. The men come and sit down, and all the women are hovering around them, giving them hot meals and all of that. The men go away. They don't clean anything. The women have to clean the dishes, eat the leftovers, eat the cold food. And it just makes me really angry that this is so unfair. So these kind of traditions, which were sort of part of a patriarchal society, are slowly fading away. Like from our generation onwards, I don't think stuff like that is going to be tolerated. So things are changing. The sort of economic empowerment is also having an impact on the sort of family dynamics within the home as well. So, it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely. And I know there is a gender gap when it comes to like pay, opportunities, etc. But with education and with people sort of bringing knowledge and shining the light on the topic, this is how we overcome the problem. And as a society, we grow onwards and upwards. It's like any other thing in India. I think the advent of the internet and the accessibility of internet to rural areas has changed things so much. Before, the farmers used to have issues selling their produce because third-party middlemen used to control everything. Now with the internet, they can go direct to source. And I mean, things change so much. Education, awareness, empowerment. You hear so many stories of how women have overcome the situations and gone on to do very, very well. And not only themselves, but they band together with fellow women. And they go out there and help hundreds, if not thousands of other women along in cooperatives and so many things like that. So it's a really interesting topic to focus on today. And folks, what we're going to do is, before we carry on with the rest of our focus topic, we have a lot of new viewers today. So I'm just going to quickly share some of the resources. So we had somebody just ask, why is the broadcast in English and not in Hindu language and so on. So it's because we have a worldwide audience, many of whom they don't speak Hindi. The presenters, us also, are not very fluent in Hindi. And so English is the medium that we choose, which has the widest access and easy to communicate with. So that's one of the reasons. But if you choose to look at Hinduism in a different language, then I'll share with you some resources. So the first of which is, if you come to this website, hindu-academy.com, and you will find our e-learning course over here. And we've got our ebooks on Hinduism over here. And there are a variety of other resources you can take part in. Now, these are the courses that we've got. And you can see a basics of Sanskrit is also here. So you can choose to learn Hinduism or learn Sanskrit here if you want to learn that manner as well. This particular course is the one that we are at about 7,000 students enrolled. And I want to get to 10,000 very, very shortly. So it looks at variety of different topics in the basics of Hinduism. That's how it looks in the back end. And we've got a fantastic quiz, 101 questions. If you pass that, you've known all the things you need to know about the basics of Hinduism indeed. So Manish Bhai, I'll hand over back to you and we can carry on with the rest of the Q&A.
Thank you, Nisit Bhai. We continue with this topic of gender equality. And one thing, even in the West, we see is when we look at position of women in executive position or higher position, the percentage is much lower. So we seem to still need to do a lot more work to get there. And why is this so? And how can we improve this situation, Sitavin?
Yeah, I think it takes a long time for a cultural shift to happen, because this kind of thinking of men being in more powerful positions and women being in inferior positions is something that has been ingrained not just in Indian society, but across the globe, this idea that men are superior and women are inferior. And it's going to take a long time to sort of, for people to understand that it doesn't matter what gender they are both equally capable of doing the same job. And it could be high positions, it could be all sorts of very powerful positions that women are able to take. It just takes a long time for the mentality to sort of shift. And hopefully in 100 years back, in 100 years time, we'll look back and say, can you believe that women only had like 1% of women were able to sort of get into these executive positions? So hopefully it's something that we can look back on and reflect in a few years' time, hopefully. Vijay Bhai?
That's an interesting question. I tell you why, because again, as I used to work in Scandinavia for quite a while, I don't know if you know, but in Norway, they did actually enforce it. And there was a big kind of, what do you call, a fight back from the men. Apparently they're saying that men are far more aggressive, far more, dynamic and really can push deals, and there should be, so women should not be allowed to, unless they're up to that kind of macho kind of stuff. But what they did in the Norway government, by the way, don't forget, in the Scandinavian countries, the women make quite a big portion of the parliament MPs. So they actually forced a law in Norway, positive discrimination, and they said every board must have at least 30-40% women. And then after 2 or 3 years, the companies are performing better. Yeah. So it's just a psychological barrier needed to be crossed by men. And they actually found that the companies are doing much, much better rather than just having aggressive macho. Actually, women played a very big role by bringing a new kind of dimension. And the companies are doing better. So it's already been tested in some countries. It's just a question of getting the people's psyche right, that actually doesn't matter. But as Sita said, it's just one of the things that we have to work on, and hopefully we'll get there in a couple of decades. But it's already been practiced and it works. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah.
Wonderful answer there, Vijay Bhai. So we got one question asked from Sasank Raturi. He's mentioning Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 6.4.7 and mentions if she is not willing, he should buy her over. And if she is still unyielding, he should strike her with a stick or with the hand and proceed uttering the following mantra: I take away your reputation. So I would like to say this is a mistranslation by some colonial translator. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad does not say this, and I think someone in Quora has already answered this question. So when we look at this sort of translation, please do try to go into the original text and see what is being said, because if you know the Sanskrit, then you can find that such things are often mistranslated to show Hinduism in poor light. So I would like you to say, please go in different, look at different translations of the text and see what is being said. Look at it in context it is said as well. We'll pass over that question because it seems to be mistranslation. There's no need for us to discuss it further. Another question we need to look at is how do we, what is the position of third gender people who do not identify themselves in one bracket, male or female? How do we deal with them, and what is their position in society? Sitabin?
So, I mean, since ancient times, actually, they were called people of the third gender, but people who are gay or are attracted to people of the same gender or both genders, they were not discriminated against at all. Actually, they were sort of very talented individuals, especially in the fields of entertainment, dance, music, all of that. And they were given those kind of roles in ancient society. It's just unfortunate that, in the same way that women were sort of given an inferior position during the sort of Middle Ages and the colonial periods, this kind of thing was also sort of adopted, this idea that, people of the third gender or people who are gay or whatever are not of equal stature to people who are heterosexual, which is just completely outrageous. But now, again, we're sort of, turning the cycle in a positive way. And people of, it doesn't matter what gender you're attracted to, you are still Atman, you are still essentially a divine being, and you can make a great contribution to society, and you shouldn't be stopped or held back in any way whatsoever. So in the same way that women were sort of put down and the gay people were also put down, we are also turning a tide and hopefully empowering everybody to feel like they are spirit, essentially. Vijay Bhai? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think you've got it pretty well, Sita. I mean, the thing is, I think there's so many in-betweens. If you look at the Hindu scriptures, they talk of the Tritiya Prakriti, as Sita mentioned, the third gender. So there's distinct man and woman, and there's so many in between. Not just that's why you have the term LGBTQ+. So they cover almost everybody in there. People like to cross-dress, you name it. Look, the fact is, evolution is not perfect. It happens also in the animal kingdom. It's not unique to human kingdom, by the way. This has been seen up 10 times in birds, in animals. Behavior is not unique to us. And the thing is that everyone is different. And that's how evolution works. So I think sometimes religion is said, oh, this thing, God did that, God did that. There's nothing. That's not true. Yeah. So we have a huge range of people. And I think we should all admire everybody for their skills. They're all divine, as Sita mentioned, and they all have unique abilities, skills, and we can all benefit from everybody's kind of contribution to society. Yeah, that's all I can add on that, Manish Bhai. Yeah.
Wonderful answer there, Sitaben Vijay. We take a new question from Purnachandra Mondal. He's saying, what happens to Atma after moksha, as there is no rebirth after it? Is there no rebirth after it? What does it do then? Vijay?
Well, very tricky question. I think which you've covered a couple of times. The idea of, again, when you say that, when you say, what does it do? That implies that there is desh and kar with space and time. That doesn't exist. So I haven't achieved this, so I really can't say, but people who have actually achieved the idea of moksha, it is like infinite bliss. It's a state of, amazing state, which transcends the idea of material world. So it's a state that you can only experience. So there's nothing to do as such, because doing stuff is a mundane stuff of this material world. You actually transcend. So the state of moksha is something way, way beyond the scale of our mundane human existence. It has to be experienced to really know what that state is about. So I think we are aiming for very low goals here. When you say, what does it do? We are still thinking in terms of human terms. Oh, do I get a piece of ice cream? No, it doesn't work like that. You have actually in a totally different plane altogether. Yeah. So think of something that is like comparing like an ant with a huge, person like us. The scales are so vastly different that you can't even think in terms of what will I do, because that's a human endeavor, right? Or in the material world. So it doesn't even apply. It's not easy to answer this question. It's more to do with experience. Sitaben?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it reminds me of the example that Dad used to give. When you go to the seaside and you look at the waves of all of the ocean, and you see on the crest of every wave, you see the sun is shining. We think that we are that sort of crest of the wave. We think we are sort of going up and down. We're living our life, going through highs and lows. But it's only when we look up, we realize that we're not this crest of waves going up and down. We are the sun. And then you kind of have that moment of realization, and that's it. There's nothing more to it. All this idea, as Vijay was saying, of time and space and what do you do? There's nothing to do. There is no time, there is no space in that sort of amazing state. You are essentially merged with the divine, and there is nothing more that you can expect. That's the sort of jackpot that we are all striving towards in our sort of life bumbling through.
Wonderful example there, Sitaben. Wonderful answer. So we've got a question. What is moksha? So if you could go over that, please.
Abhishek?
Yeah. Again, moksha is just what we just discussed just now. Is a state of self-realization that you're actually more than just the body. You're actually something far, far grander. Something absolutely brilliant. I think the words used like asti, bhati, priya, the state of the ultimate. Yeah. So unlike in other traditions where moksha is seen as somewhere you go in heaven because you have done something, God's grace takes you there and you enjoy your life infinitely. But the question comes, if you enjoy something infinitely, are you really enjoying it after a while? As Jay say, if you eat a cake every day, the cake will taste like poison after a while. So the idea that you go to a heaven after moksha or achieving something where you're actually living something, that just does not fly with Hindus. Hindus moksha is a state of self. You're transcending this mundane body of the universe. You're in a state of infinite bliss. As Sita mentioned, the idea of this sun and the waves. You are that glorious sun. The day you find that out, that's moksha basically. Yeah. Sita meant. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it. It's just everything else just feels completely irrelevant and everything just drops away. And actually, it's another very similar example in I think it's Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, of the two birds sitting on the branch. There's one bird on the top branch who is calm and still. And there's a second bird on the bottom branch who is bouncing around, eating fruit and hopping about. And then the bird on the bottom branch sort of suddenly looks up and realizes that, that's me. That bottom bird on the bottom branch was actually just the shadows playing in the wind. So when you realize that you are the bird on the top branch, all of your life just appears like a shadow. It's not relevant at all anymore.
Wonderful. Another wonderful example there, Sitaben. Great to hear is amazing gems from the Upanishads. Wonderful stuff. Sumit Sagar is asking about why Western scientists do not accept the Aryan invasion theory. Sumit, I think what we want to do with Aryan invasion, we want to do a special discussion on that. So we'll leave this for time being, but maybe next week or in future, we'll do one topic where we'll discuss this in detail. So we'll leave it for today. Next question, someone says, I've heard some Hindus use the term Sanatan Dharma. What is that? Sitaben?
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed it on previous videos as well. So dharma is the sort of the closest term to religion within sort of Hinduism, essentially. And dharma is that which underpins everything. And there's many layers of meaning to both the word Sanatan and both the word dharma as well. So Sanatan means eternal and universal. So what we are talking about is something which is true throughout time as well as space. So it doesn't matter if you're looking at it from 100 years ago or in 200 years into the future, it still applies. And the idea of dharma is that which underpins the whole universe. And that underpinning to the universe is essentially spirit. And our human life, our human journey is essentially trying to come to terms with what is that underpinning to the universe? What are the sort of patterns in the universe that can help us understand the sort of, you know, the spirit which is underpinning everything? And that is the ultimate search. And it's actually something that is being done not just through religions, but through science, through so many human endeavors, this search for what is going on, what is this universe all about? And that's what dharma really is. Vijay bhai?
I think Sita, you have got it brilliantly. Just to add on to what Sita just said, if you realize what Sita just said, notice what Sita said, the Sanat Dharma actually, if you heard it carefully, there's no mention of a particular religion or particular sectarian movement. It's a universal term, and that's the beauty about Sanat Dharma. It does not compartmentalize people in different groups. The idea of eternal and universal, the idea of dharma applies to all of humanity. It doesn't matter what endeavor you use to progress in your spiritual journey. It applies to everybody, and that's the beauty about it. There's quite something interesting. Whenever we say religion, and sometimes when you say that, we say, I will this religion, I will that religion. What are you actually doing? You put people in compartments. It's just a very interesting saying somebody told me once, and it's really true that usually all these movements start as a cult, and once a cult achieves a critical mass, it becomes a religion. Yeah. So the question is this: do you want to follow that, or do you want to follow something that is all-encompassing, something that doesn't distinguish between different endeavors of spiritual endeavors? All are kind of going to the same goal, and that's the beauty about the word Sanat Dharma. It's universal. It doesn't divide people, right? It actually unites people, and that's why it's a really amazing term that which applies to Hinduism. Yeah,
that is wonderful, Vijay bhai and Sitaben. Wonderful way to describe Sanatan Dharma. That's amazing. We take the next question: is Hinduism compatible with science? Coming back to Hinduism now, Vijay bhai.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Because the thing is this: look, everybody's trying, as Sita has mentioned many times, everybody's trying to find the truth. Whether you use art, dance, music, science, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, we're all trying to find the deep truth. What is the ultimate truth? You can't have two answers. There cannot be two ultimates, right? So whatever endeavor you use, whether you use a spiritual endeavor, experiential or meditation, you're trying to find the ultimate truth. And science is no different. Okay, we may have mundane science to help us, Vigyan, on day-to-day life. But even the scientists, they want to find the ultimate answers, right? Why are we here? What's the universe? So we are all on the same journey. So in that sense, Hinduism is very compatible with science. We've got to accept that there are different ways to find the truth. If you accept that, but I think what we should be very careful about is not to play this game that, look at this small fact in Hinduism, and science vindicates that, we are scientific. Because look, the journey of finding the truth is so vast, is as vast as the ocean, very bigger. And there's so many ways. Even science has got so many conflicting answers. We're all on the same journey. So yes, in that sense, we're compatible. We're all trying to find the truth. And we accept that. We don't have any problem with science. We don't have a problem with evolution. We don't have a problem with quantum mechanics. We don't have a problem with any kind of scientific endeavor. And Hindus will love that. So yeah, all on the same journey. Sita?
Yeah, I think you've covered it amazingly. I think as human beings, we're so used to putting things into boxes and categories in our head that, oh, this is religion and this is science, and they're completely different. But actually, they're both searching for the same thing in very different ways. So religion is more about sort of that inward journey, using the sort of inner path through meditation or contemplation to try and find what is going on in the universe. What is all this? And science is sort of using it from the sort of perspective of the outer, the physical world. What is this? What are we doing? And, you know, what is our purpose here? So essentially, they are both sort of different approaches for trying to find the same answers.
Wonderful answer, Sitaben. We got an interesting question. The question is, where do you find meaning in your life? I'm not sure what they mean by this. Where do you find meaning in your life, Sitaben?
Meaning in your life, I think, is probably, it doesn't even have to relate to being, you know, religious or praying to God or anything like that. It just really reminds me of what Dad says, like, you have to just live a spiritual life. And the way you do that is by multiplying yourself, seeing yourself in everybody around you. And when you have that kind of perspective in your life, you will make the kind of decisions that are going to support the people around you, support the people around the world. And, you know, your heart will guide you to do the right thing. And that's essentially spiritual living. The more you feel connected with those around you, the more sort of fulfilled and enriched your life is. And that's all that we can really hope for. And hopefully, eventually, we can hit the jackpot and realize that, the person I'm serving is actually me as well. So it's a wonderful journey we all have to sort of explore. Vijay Bhai?
I think Sita has covered the essence of Hinduism. That's just it. How we serve others and selflessly. And if you see others, you serve in others, then I think that's the way to go. So yeah, no more to add on that. Beautiful answer.
Excellent answer, Sitaben. Really wonderful to hear that. And this next question is leading, I think, related to that. Well, that as well. It says, is it more important to help yourself, help your family, help your society, or help the world? I think, so yes, do we just focus on ourselves and family and maybe society next to us, or do we help the whole world? What's your take on that, Sitaben?
Well, I think, I mean, from a practical standpoint, you need to look after yourself to some level. At least make sure you're fed and you've got enough to sustain yourself and your family. But then a lot of people sort of think that's it, that's the be all and end all of life. But actually, once you are in that position where you are sort of financially able to look after yourself and your family, it's then time to sort of expand it and sort of do work in the local community, support the local community, support people in other parts of the world who you've never even met before, people who you know are in need of that financial help and that empowerment. Give that to them. If you are in that lucky position to be able to be a steward of wealth, do it. This is your chance in life to sort of serve humanity, to feel connected with those around you. So you have to keep expanding the circle of who you call your own. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think Sita has covered well. I mean, everything. Yeah, we should be helping everybody. Of course, as practically, you start with your near ones, expand to the society, community at large, and to the world. So yeah, that's, I think, beautifully covered. Yeah, nothing more to add on that, Manish.
If one has to choose between the two, either choose a family and near and dear ones, or become a sannyasi and then go help the world, how does one decide what to do in that scenario, Sitaben?
Every individual is different, so you have to let your conscience be your guide. And as within Hinduism, we've got the ashram system, so it sort of allows us to sort of lead a fulfilling life in every aspect. So as a child, as a student, as an adult, and you can choose to sort of be a householder. You can choose to have a family to support and be in a financially more powerful position to help those around you. But for some people, that's just not the right way. For them, like the idea of, earning money and all of that seems like very sort of worldly and materialistic, and they don't want to do that. They want to sort of focus on their sort of inner spiritual journey, and they don't want to sort of, have all the sort of worries of materialistic life. And for them, a spiritual path is more suited. And hopefully when we are all sort of retired and all of that, we may find that actually we want to spend the rest of our life focusing on that inner journey, and supporting the sort of the welfare of humanity in that way. So it depends on what point of your life and how you feel and what your aspirations are. Vijay bhai?
I think Sita, you've got it pretty well. I mean, of course, if you have some near dear ones, then you have some responsibility as well, because they're relying on you, so you could look after them as well. But by and large, I think it's based on the individual and how he wants to follow his kind of journey is. So yeah, that's kind of basically it. Yeah.
Right. Prasant Tripathi has asked an interesting question. He's saying throughout history, Hinduism has been very accepting of all genders and orientations. Yeah, but in today's society, especially in India, why are there some prejudices against third genders? Now, I've heard a story. A friend of mine made a movie on this third gender people and how their choices are quite limited in India. There's only certain things that they can do. And even when he was filming with the real third gender people, he had problems even renting a house where some people were not ready to accept to let their house to let third gender people live in their house as renting people. So how do we deal with these prejudices against third gender, Vijay bhai?
Okay, I think that's very true. But again, I suspect, again, because India has been ruled for almost 1,000 years, but Islamic, even the British. By the way, some good news which I heard that just 2 years ago, India removed this old archaic British law, which is discriminating against third gender. They can now marry. The irony is this actually is the Hindu government in power, and they actually supported that law. Yeah, so it just shows who's right, who's left. We can really never say. But also something else also I noticed that the third gender people are now winning mayor elections, they're winning local village elections. So it's a start. I think Hinduism should come back to the core and accept that all people are divine. That's the first thing we have to do. But the other thing also I have heard is that, which is happening again, is that more job opportunities are now being created for the third gender. And then I think the laws in place now, I believe, are coming in place in India as well to stop discrimination against third gender when they apply for normal jobs. So it's coming. All I can say is that hopefully society itself is mentally prepared to say that, look, there's nothing wrong with that. They're actually people just like us. And that's the hard part. You're trying to convert a conditioning of so many hundreds of years. And I think even the British were you'd be surprised. Some of the laws are very, very anti, LGBTQ. It's surprising. It's even more surprising it took 70 years to actually remove those laws. It's a bit of a sad situation. But I think things will get better. And I hope they do because they're just people like us. Yeah. Sita Ben?
Yeah, I think you've covered it. I mean, one thing which hopefully will start happening, throughout humanity is that, these sort of wonderful ideas within the heart of Hindu philosophy, the idea that everyone is essentially divine, if they can start infiltrating humanity essentially, so people sort of understand that we are all essentially spirit, then it will hopefully be able to shape politics. It will be able to shape the sort of social dynamics essentially. So, this idea of discrimination on anything really, even race, gender, orientation, whatever it is, are literally just external things, like you're wearing different kind of clothes essentially. Hopefully those kind of wonderful spiritual ideas will start infiltrating and remove all these barriers and discrimination.
Wonderful answer, Sita Ben Vijay bhai. We take next question. Before that, Rishik Pandey has asked, how can a beginner learn Upanishads? Rishik Pandey, Ramakrishna Mission has got wonderful material. You can buy books on Upanishads and their explanations on that. And there is wonderful videos. Jay Bhai done a video on Kathopanishad. It is there as well. And there is a wonderful material on YouTube. Swami Sarvapriyananda has done wonderful videos as well. So you could use all these resources to learn about Upanishads. We take next question from Ian Pride. He's asked, does Atman have a gender? If you meditate that I am not the body and focus on being Atman, does gender form part of the unfolding sense of Atman? Sita Ben, does gender form any part of Atman if you're focusing on Atman?
Not at all, not at all. So Atman is completely genderless. This idea of, as you were saying in the question, this idea that you are the body is linked with gender essentially. And Atman is completely genderless. It's the most universal spirit essentially. So how can you sort of put it into boxes of it being male or female? And actually what we do say is that, well, it's a theory. Obviously, you have to sort of, see how you think about it. But perhaps the reason why there are these sort of like people who are gay, people who are attracted to the same gender, all of that is happening, is possibly when people are reincarnated, they are actually sort of switching genders from one birth to another birth, because it's a fluid thing. Your Atman isn't male or female. And perhaps that's the reason why a person can say, actually, hang on, I'm not attracted to the opposite gender. I'm attracted to the same gender in this particular life because that's how I've thought of in my previous life. So it's an interesting theory. Obviously, you have to think what you want to about that, but that's just a thought. Essentially, Atman is genderless. Vijay Bhai? Oh, you're on mute.
Nothing to add. I think Sita, you've got it pretty well. So yeah, over to Nishit Bhai, I think.
Fabulous. So we are almost at an hour on the program today. We want to sort of wrap things up. Maybe I can just ask one last question. So we had a question from Romil Pijarnia. The question is, what are your views on the true meaning of prayers?
Yeah, prayers are a very powerful concept, yes. If they're done with total dedication and with focus and genuine prayers, they are very important. I think this day and age is very important to heal us, to heal society at large, and also for speech. So in multiple ways, I mean, prayer is part of bhakti. And it's actually a very powerful thing. So yes, it's important if you do that in some form or the other. It doesn't have to be in one particular manner. But even meditation can be seen as a form of prayer. So yes, the true meaning of prayer is something to do with genuine heart and for love for you, yourself, the near ones, and humanity. And that's what prayer is about. And God, obviously. Sita, man?
Yeah, prayer is just one of those wonderful things where it allows you to sort of connect with a form of God or to connect with yourself. And sometimes you don't even need to do any particular rituals. It could just be sort of repeating the name of God before you go to bed, or repeating the name of God when you're going through a difficult time. And it's that chance to sort of build your own inner strength, to feel sort of more connected with spirituality rather than a materialistic life. It gives you that pause to say, hang on, I'm more than what I'm doing, rushing around doing this materialistic life. There is a lot more to me than that.
Wonderful. So what I will say is, if you're of that mindset that, I cannot do the traditional kind of prayers and so on and so forth. You may be a youngster who's brought up in the modern Western world. You can't relate to old traditional prayers. Then what I'd say is find your own path. And the best path I can tell you is look inside, not outside. So meditate, focus on yourself, do some other things. If you can't do your traditional prayers, that's another awesome way to, connect with yourself and connect with nature and raise your consciousness at the same time. So with that, folks, I want to thank you all very much for joining us today, taking your time out of your day to join us on the broadcast. I've asked the viewers where they're watching us from, and we've got people from Sydney, from the US, from Africa, from India, from the UK, many, many places around the world. So I just want to say we appreciate you all the interaction you have in the live chat with us, all the wonderful questions you pose to us. Every week we sit here and try and answer these questions. And my awesome panel here does a really good job, I think, from the feedback I've seen. And so thank you to Manish Bhai, Sita Ben, Vijay Bhai for hosting such a wonderful session on Hinduism every week. You never know what the audience is going to throw at you, but you always come up with an answer anyway. And so that is something that we really enjoy doing. And as always, I'd like to close with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. Today's quote is this: whatever you think, that you will be. If you think yourself weak, weak you will be. If you think yourself strong, strong you will be. So the moral of the story is it doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, anything in between, be strong. Have a great week, everybody. And I'll bring my team back on. There we are. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.